I'd like to call to order the Reidsville City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 13th. First item on the agenda is invocation by the Reverend Dr. Michael T. Galloway, pastor of the Greater Brandon Chapel Missionary Baptist Church, 1121 Brandon Chapel Road, Alton, Virginia. He is the president of the Ministerial Alliance of Reidsville and Vicinity and chaplain for the Reidsville Police Department. And while the Reverend is coming forward, I'm sure you've noticed that Mrs. Moore isn't here tonight. Mrs. Moore is now Mama Moore, and she's on maternity leave and will be away from us just a few months. But we are in very capable hands of interim city manager, Chris Phillips. So as you give prayer tonight, I want you to pray for Mama Moore and Daddy Moore and Fisher Moore.
All righty.
The new baby.
I'd like to say good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Let every heart pray. Father, as we come right now, we just want to say thank you. We thank you, God, because you said in your word, in all things we ought to give thanks. And right now, Lord, we want to thank you for the opportunity to come out to another city council meeting with our brothers and sisters this evening. God, we want to pray right now that you will have your way in this meeting today. We pray that your spirit will lead, guide, and direct each council member, God, in a way that will bring glory, honor, and praise to your name, and that everything that's being said and done will be best for the city of Reidsville. We pray, God, for the names that have been called out tonight, and then not only the names that are called out tonight, but we pray for all of the citizens of this great city of Reidsville. Do it right now, God, and we'll be so careful to give your name all the praise, honor, and all of the glory, for it is in Jesus' precious and mighty name we do pray. Let everybody say amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
We all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda as presented. Before we take the motion on that, I have a statement I need to read. As we move to adopt the agenda, I would remind council members that if you have a potential conflict of interest regarding any of the items on tonight's agenda, you should ask to be recused when the item is first introduced. While you may remain on the dais, you should not take part in any discussion, deliberation, or vote on the identified item. Any recusal will be reflected in the meeting record. You've had an opportunity to review the agenda. We have a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the portion for tonight.
We have a second. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor raise your right hand. Thank you. Next, we have a proclamation and recognition. Recognition of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Monday, January 19, 2026. Dr. Galloway, come forward.
Yes, sir.
And it reads as follows. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a native of Atlanta, Georgia, was tragically killed at the age of 39 on April 4, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee, while leading sanitation workers in a protest against low wages and intolerable working conditions. And whereas the King Holiday and Service Act of 1994, signed into law on August 23rd of that year by President Clinton, designates the King federal holiday to be a day of national service, and this year's observation on Monday, January 19, 2026, will be celebrated by City of Reidsville employees. Whereas at the heart of Martin Luther King Jr.'s philosophy was the concept of service, for he believed that a person's worth was not measured by its color, culture, or class, but rather by his or her commitment to making a better life for all. And it is this belief that makes the King observance a unique holiday, because it challenges Americans not only to remember and celebrate, but also, most importantly, to act to address the issues for which Dr. King and others gave their lives. Now therefore, I, Donald L. Gore, Mayor of the City of Reidsville, and the Reidsville City Council do hereby recognize Monday, January 19th, 2026 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Reidsville, and continue to urge all citizens or residents to join us as we rededicate ourselves to the principles of justice and equality for all in the memory of this apostle of nonviolence who gave his life in the crusade for human rights. This is the 13th day of January 2026. Dr. Galloway, you got any words?
Yes, sir. I sure do. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for this proclamation. And we do know that Dr. King was very influential in our country concerning civil rights and equality, and he left a great legacy. And what we want to do is continue that legacy on, and we're going to do that with the up and coming events this Martin Luther King holiday. Beginning Sunday, January the 18th at 5 p.m., we will be hosting the Martin Luther King Unity and Scholarship Service at the Galloway Pentecostal Holiness Church, which is the home of our very own mayor. And that service, again, will be at 5 o'clock, and yours truly will be the speaker for that service. Then we will go on into Monday morning at 9 o'clock a.m. We'll have the Martin Luther King Unity Breakfast at the Zion Baptist Multi-Purpose Center. And the speaker for that event will be Dr. Kenneth Moore, who is also the president of NAACP. Once that is completed, then we'll move here to City Hall, steps of City Hall, to have the Martin Luther King commemorative speech at 1:30 p.m. And the speaker for that will be interim pastor Dr. Thomas Boxdale. Afterwards, we'll move back over to Zion Baptist Church at 3 o'clock, where we'll have the Dr. Martin Luther King Memorial Service. And the speaker for that service will be Elder Cassandra Williams, and we will give out the Dr. Martin Luther King Memorial Award at that time. We're asking all of you that if you don't have anything to do or time permits in your schedule, to please come out and join us for these events. You'll be glad that you did. Thank you very much, and thank you again.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have 4 items. Is there anyone who'd like to have one pulled for discussion? That not being the case, do we have a motion to approve the agenda, consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Next, we have a public hearing. Consideration of a text amendment T 2025-06 to introduce new standards for curb and gutter. Enclosure 1, Ms. Drew Bigelow, Planning and Community Development Director.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, the last time this topic came up, I recused myself. However, tonight I will not be doing that upon legal advice. This is not a subject that directly affects me solely. This topic relates to all development, all landowners across the city, and there's not one individual thing here that benefits me. So for that particular reason, I misspoke the last time, and I should not recuse myself this time. So I want to make clarity on that.
Mr. Martin, back in the November 10th meeting, you recused yourself, and the discussion basically was that if you may have, you don't have to, but if you may have an interest in their monetary interest, personal interest, that could amount to even a conflict of interest, then you should recuse yourself. And your circumstances, I don't know your circumstances.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make clear, I made that statement because I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure I wasn't on the fence the last time, because I do own properties to be developed here and have developments in the works and different things such as that. So I did seek legal advice after that last meeting in reference to laws, where I stood and what my duties to vote on are and what I should do. So I just wanted to make clarity on that before we got started tonight.
So the recourse would be, if this is to council, if Councilman Martin does not recuse himself voluntarily, then council may object to his decision, and then council could have a vote, a motion. So you don't have to, obviously, but
That's perfectly fine if they want to do that.
Based on conflict of interest, and then he would be recused by council from participation. That's a decision the council can make.
After hearing council speak, is there anyone who has an objection or who would like to?
It would be more than just, you'd have to have a discussion.
Okay.
It would be more than just voting to have him recuse himself, or the council would make him recuse himself. You'd have to have a discussion. It's like a hearing,
Okay.
basically.
Yes, as well as not just the curb and gutter topic, but the clear cutting topic as well, because obviously I have property that I own that I want to develop, that I want to cut trees and clear as well. And I do agree with you that a hearing can be given as well as, but council needs to state specific reasons if they choose to do that, as to what are the specific reasons to force me in that recusal. What monetary benefits for me individually does this create?
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of back and forth. There's no clear-cut answer there's not an easy button, a yes or no, whether someone should recuse themselves. One of the North Carolina statutes, 160D-109, does say a governing board member shall not vote on any legislative decision regarding a development regulation. So curb and gutter is a development regulation, and this is a legislative decision. So it says board members shall not vote on any legislative decision regarding a development regulation adopted pursuant to this chapter. The outcome of the matter being considered is reasonably likely to have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact on the member. So back in November 10th, it was the discussion, I don't remember it verbatim, but it was basically that you had something going on in another curb and gutter generally, but that you had some development that was ongoing, that was subject to this potential ordinance.
That's correct.
So-
Two developments, as well as any and every other developer would have that And so upon legal advice to me is I'm not voting on a policy that's going to give me a financial gain above or beyond anyone else's, nor is there a financial gain. The question at hand here at the policy is do we get development going or do we not get development going here? And so that would be the same as saying that any downtown property owner here that is on council must recuse themselves from making any policies downtown, such as, the policies that we are working on to revitalize downtown, to hold accountability because of the valuation of the buildings down there that are running down. So that same thing, according to the legal advice that I've received, that would be applicable to the rest of the council members who are property owners, to say that they should not vote on anything that pertains to property that they own, because what gains could potentially come out of fixing the rundown buildings downtown that do play a bearing on the cost evaluation or the property evaluation of those buildings.
So,
That's my take on it. Council can hold their hearings, do what they want to do.
everybody's heard what took place November 10th. You've heard Mr. Martin, so it's up to council. You don't have to do anything. You could proceed with a motion. This is for the council's pleasure.
What's the pleasure?
Well, Mayor, I would object to it. We've heard time and time again from Councilman Martin talk about this development over here on Park Place, and the group he's involved in purchasing it for $1.2 million. His group's going to develop it. I've heard conversations with him that he's had with me in mentioning the curb and gutter, which would cost him dollar figures out of his pocket. So maybe I'm confused. I don't know how that's not a conflict. If we're sitting here voting on curb and gutter for this policy, if you have to have it or if you don't have to have it, I can't see how that's not a direct conflict with he and his development group.
Anyone else have a comment?
Councilman Martin, will you again specify to us what your council said to you?
So this policy isn't targeted specifically, and it's obvious that our own legal opinion here says that it's not clear to him whether or not I recuse myself of this, but at the first time I recused myself out of precautionary measures to be sure. But any developer has the same opportunity, and any landowner has the same opportunity that would be afforded by this. This isn't a policy or a text amendment that is specifically related to me or to me, but also the fact of the matter is it's not about whether it costs me money or whether it costs any developer money. This is a matter of no developer can afford to put curb and gutter in a policy because of the cost, and the evaluation is not there to get development going. And then there's been comments made in the past about large tract home builders who develop land can afford to put curb and gutter in versus, local developers cannot. But here's the key piece that staff and council is missing to this as well, talking about affordability. Let's use Park Place as an example. There's 68 homes in there, 30 acres. If you take another development and any of the proposed developments that have been given here, there are 175 to 200 units per 30 acre, 40 acre tract of land. So the developers divide that cost up per home, and that's why you have these high density developments here, versus you don't see anyone asking for low density developments of 60 homes or 65, 68 homes. So this doesn't afford me the opportunity. It affords everyone the opportunity. It affords every developer the opportunity. And this is a matter of whether anyone can build here, not me, because the dollars is evaluated on a per acre cost So I don't care if you're D.R. Horton, True Homes, or if you're me, it costs you the same to put curb and gutter and storm water in. And no one is doing that here at all. And everyone who has came here to propose developments here have stood right there at that podium and said, we have to have 190 units, we have to have 215 units. And the community has sat here and talked about how they're sick and tired of seeing home packed upon top of each other, on top of each other. And these other developers have explained to you guys that they have to get these high density homes packed in on 30 acres because they have to divide that cost up. I don't see it after legal advice where it's a conflict to me. You got a motion on the floor or someone who's objected to it. My suggestion would be is someone second that if they disagree with it. And if I disagree with that, I have the right to legal counsel and we can deal with it accordingly in the future, you know. So that's the way that I see it, you know.
Anyone else have a comment? Will there be a motion for recusal?
Do I need to make that motion? If I made object, I make a motion for the recusal.
We have a second. We have a motion and we need a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, Mr. Martin, you use from this situation. You don't have to leave the dais. All right, Drew.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, Council, and Interim City Manager Phillips. Staff has been petitioned to review and amend the City of Reidsville's current curb and gutter policy. These requirements are located in the subdivision regulations, not within our zoning ordinance. As development activity increases, particularly activity related to residential subdivisions and housing, it is essential that our policies prioritize community well-being and environmental compliance. Our current curb and gutter policy requires all new residential subdivisions located both within and outside of the corporate limits, so that would be the properties in the ETJ as well, to have proper curb and gutter installed by the developer at the time of site development. Currently, there are no exceptions to this requirement for residential subdivisions. Curb and gutter is not explicitly identified as a requirement for commercial developments within the City of Reidsville subdivision regulations. To encourage development and increase our local housing stock, staff has researched the curb and gutter policies of several other regional municipalities and municipalities of similar sizes, and we make the following suggestions regarding this amendment. So the first is a proposed exception for density, low density development. So for single family, if they develop at a density of less than 6 units an acre, they would be exempt from curb and gutter. If they develop at a density of greater than 6 units an acre, they would be required to install curb and gutter. And we chose that number just for a little further context because our smallest zoning district is R6, and you can put approximately 6 homes on an acre in that district. So that's why we stuck with the 6 units an acre as a density for single family. For townhomes and multifamily, that number is increased slightly to a density of 8. And this is slightly less than what we typically require for townhome developments. In our R12 district, you can develop townhomes at a 10.5 unit an acre density, so we're just slightly below that. So if they come in 8 or less, they do not have to have it. More than 8, they do have to have it. The second exemption that we're providing with this amendment is an exemption from the curb and gutter requirement may be given for all new developments located in the Troublesome Creek watershed. This is to further alleviate impervious surface restraints and to preserve the city's watershed acreage allowance. So we have a specific allowance that we can develop within the watershed. Once we hit that allowance, no more development of impervious can occur within the watershed. So this exemption both benefits the developer, as a lot of our growth is being seen on the western and southeastern side of the city where the lake is. So that's in the watershed. That gets them out of that. In lieu of curb and gutter, however, vegetated ditch and culvert must be installed to handle potential stormwater runoff. Underground piping and ditching of lines and yards is not permitted under this ordinance. The maintenance of all ditch lines would be the sole responsibility of the property owner or the homeowners association if it is included in their HOA incorporation documents. And we do require for new subdivisions that there is a HOA incorporation document. The third is that the Technical Review Committee will review all stormwater management plans for new subdivision developments that have been prepared, sealed, and submitted by a licensed engineer. Should the submitted plan indicate that curb and gutter infrastructure is not required or that an alternative stormwater conveyance method is acceptable, traditional curb and gutter will not be required by staff. And so that is in line with the Technical Review Committee's current review process. The last time you saw this, it made reference to staff, specifically the director and or city engineers. Since they are part of that Technical Review Committee process that we already have, we're already implementing, we changed it generally to just refer to the Technical Review Committee. So not one individual staff member is being given any authority or discretion over the review of the stormwater plan that's submitted for that project. The fourth and final recommendation is that where existing curb and gutter or other stormwater conveyance infrastructure currently exists within a subdivision development, tie-on of the same manner will be required for any expansion or new phasing of the development if one of the above three mentioned exemptions cannot be obtained. So again, that's the density exemption, the watershed exemption, or the review from Technical Review Committee of the stormwater plan as submitted by a licensed engineer. Additionally, when none of the exemptions identified in the above sections can be met, traditional curb and gutter will be required within all new subdivision developments. So just to make that 100% clear, break that down a little bit, what it's saying is that if you meet an exception, whether it's a new subdivision or an existing subdivision, you do not have to put in traditional curb and gutter if you meet one of those three exceptions. When we went to planning board with this, they did recommend that it be approved. The vote was 4-2. We had two members who expressed concerns regarding, one of them was tie-on. They wanted there to be tie-on to existing infrastructure if it were there. The other opposed that recommendation. They did not feel that tie-on should be required, and that is what's been presented, is that tie-on's not required if you meet an exception. To further elaborate on the planning board and their review of this text amendment, the planning board expressed their concerns regarding this text amendment, stating that the exemptions provided in items 1 through 3 were contradictory, and that item 3 offered staff undue discretionary authority over matters that should otherwise be classified as quasi-judicial and subject to public hearings by the planning board, board of adjustment, or city council. To clarify, site plan and subdivision reviews are typically an administrative matter handled by staff and the Technical Review Committee. The Technical Review Committee is composed of staff from the Planning and Community Development Department, Engineering, Public Works, the Fire Department, and as needed, the Police Department. Providing the stated exemptions do not require staff to assess any findings of fact, as identified in North Carolina General Statute 160D 406 and 160D 705 for quasi-judicial hearings, and thus is not prohibitive. To provide further clarity on item 3, this policy has been amended to remove language explicitly stating that a particular staff member is being afforded discretionary authority over such matters. Rather, it is stated that the TRC, Technical Review Committee, will review all submitted stormwater management plans to ensure that they have been prepared and properly sealed by a licensed engineer and that they meet the intent of the development. Should the submitted plan indicate that curb and gutter infrastructure is not required or that an alternative conveyance method is acceptable, Traditional curb and gutter, again, will not be required to be installed per this policy. Additionally, item 4 has been revised for clarity. Planning Board had some difficulty during their discussion really getting to the nuts and bolts of what number 4 meant. So it's been revised for clarity. The content of item 4, however, remains the same. Again, stating that in lieu of an exemption, tie-on to any existing infrastructure would be required for all new subdivisions and expansions of existing subdivisions. These revisions address the concerns raised at the Planning Board meeting last month, upholding their recommendation of approval as indicated. And planning staff also recommends that the adoption of this proposed text amendment be approved. And I will take any questions you have.
Any questions of Drew?
I understand that the discretionary power was removed, but I watched the planning board meeting several times, and I understood them to say that they wanted it to be revised, and if it's revised, it must go back to them before we can vote on it.
Not necessarily. So if they make recommendations that do not change the content of, or the intent of the amendment, that's not necessarily true.
But you're the one that's going to decide whether or not that changes the content or not.
I made the recommendations that they suggested.
Well,
And those
the
have been reflected
suggestions that
here.
they had that I wrote down was they wanted 4 completely removed and they wanted 3 revised, which you have done that, which you have included 4 again, saying it's technically the same thing. But they asked that number 4 be removed completely.
And staff made note of that in this report, that they did not like number 4 due to, again, I think a little bit of confusion with the language. It was noted at the planning board meeting that staff would reword number 4 for clarity. Because once we got through the discussion with the members, the 2 in particular who had some heartache about number 4, while they were not satisfied, they understood that providing some clarity around number 4 would make this easier to digest. I think most of their heartache came from the fact that they didn't understand what number 4's intent was.
I think most of the heartache came from that they didn't understand and they felt like you were pushing them towards something that they didn't want, is where I think the heartache came from. And I make the motion that we return this to the planning board for them to approve this text amendment, because according to 160D, it has to go back to them for approval before we can even vote on it.
That would be if we amended something tonight. If we made a significant deviation from the text amendment as presented tonight.
There again, you are interpreting it the way that you want it to read, not necessarily the way the planning board interpreted it.
Well, and I interpreted the statement about 160D as per legal counsel for the city of Reidsville.
Well, I made the motion that we return it to the planning board for their approval and or their comments. Because my understanding is it goes back to the planning board, then it comes back to the council or to a public hearing.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Motion dies.
I'm happy to take any other questions about the text amendment or the intent of the text amendment.
Can we hear from our counsel on that issue that was just brought back and forth?
In a matter like this, council has the authority to reject or accept, or it can go back to the planning board. It generally goes back to planning board, but it doesn't have to unless there's been a significant change. It's a good practice, but it's a good practice, but it's not mandatory. And Mr. Martin disagrees, but that's
No,
my
because
take.
I agree with you. You said generally it goes back, so I don't get a vote, but I believe I can get a comment. I
I
agree
mean,
with
it
you.
doesn't, so it doesn't go back 100% of the time.
And if I may,
Could we open the motion up again? Or do we have, what can we do legally here at this point?
Is this for a hearing too? A public hearing?
this is also for public hearing.
So we can't do anything until after.
You've got to have the public hearing,
Okay.
and then, yeah, I mean, at least have afford members of the public to
What's their opinion?
put their 2 cents worth in,
Then we can entertain a motion.
and then you can entertain a motion.
If there are no further questions, we'll open the public hearing. At 6:36. Is there anyone who'd like to speak for?
I'd like to maybe comment on it, if I may.
Are you speaking for?
No.
Let's wait until that time comes. Is there anyone who'd like to speak for? Seeing none, is there anyone who'd like to speak against?
Good evening, Council. I'm Joseph Shuford. I'm an attorney in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I represent several local developers here. And I'm here to speak about this proposed ordinance and specifically exemption number 2. That item allows new developments within Troublesome Creek watershed to choose whether to install curb and gutter or to install a vegetated ditch and culvert. If the developer chooses the vegetated ditch and culvert, the ordinance says the property owner, not the city, is required to maintain that ditch. So taking a step back, the purpose of the curb and gutter or the ditch itself is to handle the flow of stormwater along a public street. We're not talking about ditches or curb and gutter that are purely for private benefit. These are infrastructures that are there to benefit the public, keeping the public street clear from unnecessary obstructions for anyone who drives down it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the ditch itself is also going to be installed on city-controlled land. The city's current design specifications require that the drainage ditch be installed within the city's right-of-way. That's land that the city controls. And even if that requirement didn't exist as a practical matter, that's where a drainage ditch for a road would be installed because it's there to handle flow of water off a public roadway. So we're not talking about infrastructure that's on solely private land. This is on land controlled by the city. And so what this means, as I understand this ordinance, is that the city is requiring installation of infrastructure for the benefit of public within a public right-of-way. And then they're also requiring the private homeowner or the private property owner to maintain it without any compensation at all. So as a general matter, municipalities are required to maintain their own right-of-way and the road infrastructure within it. Here, the city's ordinance does not do that, and it violates that general requirement and by requiring the homeowner or the property owner to maintain the public infrastructure within the public right-of-way. So as a result, I, on behalf of my clients, request that the city remove this portion of that proposed ordinance and keep the maintenance of the vegetative ditches and culverts within the city's purview. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak against?
Good evening. My name is Frank Verdi. I live at 205 Lachey Drive in Reidsville. Thank you, Council and Mayor, for allowing us a few minutes to express any concerns in favor or against the comments that are being discussed. Certainly, Mr. Shuford, who we heard from a minute ago, would have a lot more legal grounds to stand on with regards to these policies and regulations. My personal opinion, for whatever that is worth, would be that I would encourage all of us on either side of the podium, wherever we might sit, whatever our thoughts might be, to follow not only civil engineers' designs and specifications, but also the state standards, Department of Environmental Quality, along with other state regulatory departments that handle these issues. So whatever those guidelines are, whatever those rules, whatever those laws might be, policies and otherwise, I would encourage all of us to closely follow those and make sure that we put ourselves, all of us included as a community, in the right direction, in a legal direction that protects not just the interest of the city or the private, citizen or individual or developer, but all of us collectively. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak against? I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:41.
You could consider, I'm not saying that you have to do this. You've heard comments. You could consider taking this under consideration, basically tabling a vote, and have some more discourse about it, about these 4 paragraphs in the suggested text amendment. That's one thing you could do, or you could just call for a vote.
I got a question. Am I allowed to speak at all?
Ask away.
So, you know, this has been a constant issue, these particular policies, discretionary power, stormwater responsibilities, and the curb and gutter that benefits the streets and such and whatnot. I don't understand why for month after month this continues to be an issue, but none of us have had a sit down with legal advice. I tried that. I made that comment 2 or 3 meetings ago, and I would think that given the issue with the Apples property, given the issue with Buddy Latta, given the issues with the statements of what the city's responsibilities are in terms of stormwater management that are for the streets and the publics, I just don't understand why we haven't had a special council meeting with an attorney who is a subject matter expert in this and get the proper advice. And it's been 90 days, 90 days when the issue arose, you know, from the Apples, and we've yet to address that. If we have, I don't know about the rest of you council members, but I've never heard anything about it. Where does that stand, and where does the responsibility stand? I know where it stands because you just heard from the attorney. You haven't advised us what the issue is because we continue these different antics of, oh, it's on private property, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. But when the fact of the matter is if stormwater serves the public streets and the public's interest, that responsibility falls back on the city, because you cannot force one individual property owner to pay for something that is in the interest of all of the city. General statutes and state law states the health and benefits of the streets, you know. So instead of having these arguments back and forth, and this has been going on for 3 or 4 months, why do we not just get legal advice? We got legal advice on the mall, we got legal advice on the Rural Ready project. So why don't we put all this to rest once and for all and quit half-stepping these policies and know exactly what our responsibilities are and what our responsibilities to fix these stormwater issues that are throughout the community as well.
If you want to comment from me,
Or from council.
one of the suggestions that I made was to basically table this to take it under consideration, which sounds like what you want to do. I mean, that's, instead of just shooting from the hip tonight without direction that you see fit to see. So, I mean, that's just, it's a council decision.
I think council needs to be able to ask the appropriate questions to legal to get down to what our responsibilities are. This isn't even about,
Well, that's not going to happen.
no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is what are you gonna do when you find out what Mr. Schufer said is true? What are you gonna do when you find out we're responsible for all these stormwater issues throughout the community that council has been led to believe?
Is this in order?
It's our,
Chris, what's our next best move?
Well, I think what Bill is saying is, the questions have been brought up tonight. If you all want to discuss it further, you would propose to go tonight, not to vote on it, or you all can discuss it. The 6 of you can discuss it. And if there's things you want to see be part of this or not, you can take it back to planning board. If we're really talking about basically starting over at this point. It goes back to planning board. They probably, they meet next week. So you're not going to them in January. Best case, you get to planning board in February, which means it's back here in March. So you're kicking this 2 more months down the road. You do it that way. I'll let Mr. Mayor, if you all want to discuss this matter anymore at this point, you can do that. As Bill said, you can entertain a motion on this topic that's on the floor. If you want to do that.
It's two different things that is being discussed. One, we're sitting here trying to vote on a ordinance that we have on curb and gutter resulting in development. Right. And then Councilman Martin's bringing up flooding issues. It's 2 separate things. This is development that we're discussing here tonight.
Right.
If it's going to require curb and gutter.
Right.
It ain't got anything to do with existing flooding issues in neighborhoods or affecting businesses.
It's stormwater management and the whether or not you are going to be responsible for the ditches that pertain to this. It is specifically in that. But the point of what I'm trying to highlight is this issue of stormwater management has came up multiple times. The attorney pointed out who is responsible for the ditches that service the roads. Did he not? So you're going to pass a policy or potentially pass a policy that an attorney just state is not in compliance with the law.
If the attorney, is he still here? You quoted this, so what statute are you referring to that is what's the law? Can you refer what you just said up here? Where are you referencing it from? Where does it say that it's a responsibility of the city?
It's in one of the 160s. I don't know that right off the top of my head.
Is it interpretation or is it in stone?
It's a 160D comment.
All right, is it interpretation or is it in stone? It's the city's responsibility. That can mean 2 different things. We've already discussed this interpretation stuff for months, how somebody interprets something. Is it an interpretation or is it in stone that it's the city's responsibility? It's a simple question to have an answer to. We've been talking about this stuff for months. And here we are again talking about delaying another 2 months. So is it interpretation that it's the city's responsibility, what you're sitting there referring to, or is it etched in stone that it says, in whatever statute it is the sole responsibility of the city to maintain those ditch lines?
It seems that if you made that presentation and that if you have made definite comment about something, that you would know exactly which statute or policy that you're coming from rather than saying it's here or there. It doesn't help us any with shaky representation, if that makes any sense.
Your Honors, I'm happy to put together an opinion letter for your consideration. I deliberately didn't want to get too technical in my comments to you all tonight.
Well,
Because there are public comments.
with what you were presenting tonight, you should have been a whole lot more technical than what you were, if that makes sense.
I'll remember that for the next time.
May I make one more comment?
Yes, ma'am, then we're gonna call.
I do not think that we value our planning board enough, because the planning board is extremely important to the city, just below city council. We depend on them to make decisions and judgments that directly affect our decisions. And I just think that if we don't start giving them a little bit more importance in their positions, we're not going to have a planning board, because nobody's going to want to be on it. It's not a fun job anyhow.
Well, the planning board passed this on to us on a 4-2 vote, so they had the majority in the vote. Any other comments, discussion?
And the way I also see it, our city leaders and those that are involved in putting this together have looked closely at state laws and so forth. It wasn't just recklessly put together.
Haphazardly put together?
Haphazardly put together. No, not at all. A lot of time and a lot of effort was put into it to make sure that it follows law. Every I and every T crossed.
All right. What's the pleasure of council?
Mayor, if we're gonna go ahead, we're ready for a vote? Ready for a vote? Mayor, I'd make a motion to recommend the proposed text amendment T 2025-07 curb and gutter requirements approved with the modification of number 4 with a tie-in to be required even if an exception is met. And that'll be under the proposal considerations for policy amendment, which is number 4.
I second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Now, this question's for council. With the vote just taking place, and with this modification to be made, are we required to have to push it back down to the planning board, or can we go ahead and expedite this since it's not that much of an amendment or change, and not have to drag it 2 more months?
Generally, if it's a, quote, substantial change, it really should go back to planning board. If it's something that's minor or interpreted, if it's just worded different to clarify, you don't have to send it back to planning board. So the council can, like I said, they can amend, they can reject, they can approve, whatever. It's a good policy that's followed off and to send it back to planning board, but not all the time. It just really depends on the gravity of what is taken, what the amendment would call.
If this be considered a minor amendment to it, modification,
That's just a matter of opinion. I mean, that's.
can we expedite this and go ahead and not have to, is this approved and move on so we don't have to, we've been talking, like I said, for months.
That's your prerogative.
That would be that we expedite it and go ahead and not have to send it back to the planning board.
Do we just have to get a consensus, or do we have to?
Well, you've already made a
Motion on a vote.
You've already had a vote not to send it back to planning board.
Yeah.
That was done maybe a little prematurely. I mean, you could just, I think that's a done deal. You've already had a motion that is adopted.
But 160D also says that you cannot have opinions. It has to be based on fact. And we just got through saying this was an opinion.
Well, I mean, you interpret whatever's presented to you. I mean, everybody's going to have an opinion. A lot of times we use judgment, and judgment may not be facts. Some of the facts, I mean, each of you interpret what is presented in a different way. Some of you say it's factual, some of you say it's not factual. Just like a jury. I mean, some jurors are finders of fact, and they find one way or the other, not necessarily unanimous. So everybody, when they vote, is bringing their opinion as to whether or not something is factual. That's the best I can say.
Thank you.
So, where do we stand?
Well, you've already voted not to send it back to planning board. If you want it, now that you've done all the input from citizens.
They actually didn't vote, it was a motion, and no one ever seconded, then it went to public commenting. So, you know, someone could make a motion to send it back to planning board, they can make a motion.
I just made a motion to approve it.
Well,
I made a motion to approve it.
but we're done then. We're done.
He's making a motion to approve, and he's making a motion,
We voted on it.
obviously, he's not
We're
sending
done.
anything back to planning.
We done. All right. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes and may only speak once at each meeting. Each speaker shall only make comments while at the podium after clearly stating his or her name, address. The topic must be something related to the business of the city of Reidsville or something that the city council can have influence or control over. Remarks shall be addressed to the city council and not to staff nor audience or media. No remarks should be made on any matter pertaining to quasi-judicial hearings conducted by city council. Speakers will not be allowed to campaign for public office, promote private businesses, ventures, or use language of personal nature which insults or demeans a person or which may be directed at a public official, is not related to his or her public duties. Action by city council on topics raised under the public comments section should not be expected. Written comments may be accepted in lieu of oral statements and may be delivered personally or mailed to the clerk of office at 230 West Moorhead Street, Reidsville, North Carolina. Is there anyone who'd like to make a public comment on tonight? Senator Berger.
Mr. Mayor, would like to just make some brief comments about the legislature and the city in reference to the legislature. We are going to be going into what's generally referred to as a short session at some point in April. If there are local matters that would require a local bill of any sort, if you'd have the city attorney contact me, contact my office, let us know what that is. We can take a look at it, see if it's something that we can put into a local bill to move it forward. Beyond that, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you're seeing occurring along US 29. There are presently a number of bridges that are being rebuilt, replaced. Funding has been secured and is available for the Business 29 Bridge, which I always refer to it as the first bridge on 29 in Rockingham County after you leave Guilford County. But that bridge will be replaced and that intersection will be redesigned. There's a little bit of counterintuitive nature to some of the turns you have to make when you're approaching that intersection. In addition to that, we've secured funds to make sure that all of those intersections on 29 will have lights on the intersections. Now, it's going to take a little while for that to be fully secured because construction's in place, and so I am told by DOT that the expectation is that those lights will be in place and will be operational when the bridges are complete. Now, I don't know if they meant when all of the bridges are complete or as each bridge is complete. I suspect it's going to be closer to the former as opposed to the latter, because we already have one of the bridges, the one at North Carolina 14, appears to be completed to me, and there are no lights there yet. But the funding is there, and those lights should be up. I've had a number of complaints about folks coming through Rockingham County at night, and it's just as dark as it can be along 29 at the intersection. So having lights at those intersections, I'm thinking about illumination lights, not traffic lights, but illumination lights will certainly give the motoring public the understanding and the impression that the city of Reidsville is open for business, not just in daylight hours. So I think that'll be a very good thing. My chief of staff is here. Colt Ohm is my chief of staff. If there are issues that you, either individually or collectively as a council, have with the interface between either the city or you as an individual and state government, if you please let us know. I can get, I'll give you his contact cards, or you can call me. You can call me on my cell phone, 336-932-9899. In addition to that, my office, and I don't know if there's going to be a big hook that's going to yank me off of here in a minute or not, but my office puts out a weekly newsletter. If you're interested in being on the newsletter distribution list, we include information as to what's going on at the legislature, what's going on in state government, and some other things that are happening within the district, within the community. You're welcome to be, if you'll send me an email, phil.berger@ncleg.gov, phil.berger@ncleg.gov. We'll put you on the list and you'll receive it. If you get it and you don't want it, if you'll let us know, we'll take you off the list. But want to make sure that folks know what's going on at state level and have an opportunity to contact my office if there are issues that folks have. Sorry I went over time, but it's a pleasure to be here with you. I appreciate what you do. I understand some of the demands that you have. I sat for 33 years as a town attorney, just as Mr. McLeod is doing now for the little town of Mayodan in western Rockingham County. So I appreciate what you do. I understand the time commitment and some of the challenges that you face. But and I'm more than happy to answer questions if folks have questions. I just don't want to impose on your time any longer than is appropriate.
Appreciate you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay. We'll move on. Oh, okay.
Hello, my name's Nick Nickerson, and from 1400 Walnut Street here in Reidsville. Love our little town. And I'm actually here tonight. I think Drew had mentioned that they'd be speaking on topics of Airbnb properties in the area, and I don't see that on the agenda. But very much interested in learning more about that and what your views are on it. And that's really all I have.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business. Discussion on clear cutting policy, enclosure 2, Drew Bigelow, Planning and Community Development Director.
Thank you again. Sorry for being a little slow walking up this time. So this is something coming back to you again. I know we've had discussion here a couple of months ago about this policy and some discussion individually amongst staff and each of you at different times. So just to jump straight in, again, staff has been asked to review and amend the City of Reidsville's current clear cutting policy, and this one is located in our zoning ordinance. As our city continues to grow and develop, it's essential that our land management practices balance economic development with environmental stewardship, community well-being, and long-term sustainability goals. The newly proposed policy is divided into 3 sections. Section 1 outlines the general requirements to obtain a clear-cutting permit from staff and is in line with the existing provisions that provide several exemptions for approval. Section 2 provides provisions for clear cutting of residential properties and outlines, outlines new exemptions for clear cut properties that are developed within 3 years of a permit issuance. So this is something we kind of talked about last time, and we decided to leave it in there, where if they develop the property within 3 years or get a development approval from staff, which is just a site plan, then they do not have to leave a buffer. So it's a risk that they are willing to take. If they want to clear it now, get rid of all the trees, develop it within 3 years. To hold them accountable, we would request a bond for the cost of replanting the buffer if they did not obtain development within 3 years. The third section mirrors the second section. However, it applies to commercial properties that abut residential. It states that you would now only be required to have a buffer along the commercial property boundary if it is shared with the residential property. So if 3 of the 4 sides of a commercial property do not abut residential, they do not have to have a buffer. If that 4th side does abut residential, they would have to have a buffer there. And then a similar exemption exists for the development of that property. This one we gave 5 years. We understand that sometimes commercial development can take a little bit longer. There's a lot more moving parts and investment there. So again, a bond would be provided by the developer or the applicant or property owner for the development of the site within 5 years to ensure the replanting of the buffer if that didn't occur. And we can walk through the sections individually and I can read them to you, but I know you've had some time to look at them. Since this is just for discussion, I'd like to go ahead and open the opportunity for questions, and then we can walk through it in greater detail if you need clarity on a particular item.
Any questions?
I have a question. We go back and we're talking about the bonds. I don't have a problem with any of that, except if it's 3 years or 5 years, when is their bond returned to them?
So it would be at the end of the period.
Why wouldn't it be after they fulfill their obligations of clearing the land, stumping it, planting grass? Once they have fulfilled their obligation, why wouldn't they get their bond back then?
Because their obligation is not to clear the land, stump it, seed it with grass. It is to obtain a development approval. So if they obtained a development approval, we could release it. Otherwise, it would be at the end of the 3 years if they're still working on it, or if we decide to go back and replant the buffer using that bond money.
But you know, in this day and time, things aren't taking 3 to 5 years. They're taking 8 or 10 years. So their money, they just never get their money back?
We would use it to replant the buffer.
But if they have already done that, see, if they have done it, if they have done it up to that point and they have fulfilled that obligation, I don't understand why they wouldn't get their money back. When developers come into town and they start looking at our UDO, that's the biggest complaint they have. I've talked with several of them on the phone, and that's the biggest complaint that they have.
So I'm not sure I understand your question then. If they're leaving a buffer in place or planting a buffer, they wouldn't be giving us a bond.
Okay, so the bond is to ensure that they stump, plant, and plant the grass.
It is to ensure they get a development approval and develop the site within 3 years for residential and 5 years for commercial. And if they do not do that, we're allowing them to clear all the trees and not leave a buffer. And within that 3 years, they get a development approval. They provide us with the bond so that in the event that they do not obtain any sort of development approval or develop the site within that time period, we can put the parcel back to how it should be with the buffer.
That's what I'm saying. Our experience is it's taken longer than 3 to 5 years. Look at how many places right around here now have been cleared and they're still sitting there cleared.
All they have to do is obtain a development approval, which is an approved site plan.
What is how do you obtain the development approval? What does that take?
With a site plan.
What does the site plan entail? Is it a document that shows a building here? Or are you expecting civil engineer drawings and all of those? How do they get to the site plan?
It depends on the project. So some projects we can take a more rudimentary plan for review, but most of your large-scale residential and commercial, they are going to have the level of detail that it would come from a design professional, be that an engineer, an architect, what have you. So everything that I've seen in my time here has always been a fully fleshed out plan showing infrastructure, other structures, vertical, frontages and heights of structures, landscaping, parking. These are all the things that you see on a fully fleshed out site plan.
But what we're saying is in your time that you've been here, it's not working. We're not getting these industries. We're not getting these developments. So we've got to do something differently because it's not working the way we got it now.
Well, we are seeing approvals. I mean, we're not seeing them break ground necessarily, but we are seeing approvals come through our office. On our end, on the staff side, they can get through with us in a matter of 6 months. And then you have your development approval.
But when you look at the counties around us, they're getting through to that point in 3 months. And that's why they're choosing those counties.
Based on the feedback I've received from several developers who've worked in Guilford County and Greensboro, that is actually contradictory.
What about Burlington? What about Danville? Those look at the way they're growing. They're doing something entirely different than what we're doing because they're getting the industries, they're getting the businesses. We're not getting them. But yet we're getting all this land that's been cleared and just sitting there. And then we have public that's complaining about that.
And that this policy is in place to protect land from being cleared. As it currently sits, you have to have a buffer of 50 feet to protect land from being completely cleared. This ordinance amendment reduces that and allows developers or property owners more room to clear and site prep. So if that is our concern, it would be my recommendation that you do not look for an amendment to the existing ordinance. However, staff has presented you with something that is a middle ground, again, based on feedback we've received from each and every one of you, feedback from other staff, other jurisdictions, and the public. So if your concern is that there are parcels being cleared and left undeveloped, the existing policy is more amped to address that.
I don't have any problem at all with the buffers and all. My problem is developers are coming into town and we're asking them to have faith in us. But we're not giving them that faith because when they do what they're supposed to do and they don't get their money back, they don't have all the money in the world to invest.
Well, if they do what they're supposed to do, they will get their money back.
Once they get a development or site plan. But
Yes,
if they've done everything up to that point, and then it goes to, okay, let me ask you this. When we did Lot 11 Rule Ready, what did we do for that?
I wasn't involved with that project.
Industrial park doesn't fall under these same rules. There's a different set of rules for the development of an industrial park.
So what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander? Is that the way it is?
Well, it's under a special use permit, so it has different standards. It is still following these standards for that
I've got
site.
a couple questions, policy specific,
Yeah.
but to her statement of Lot 11. It's not a different set of rules, because whether it's an industry, whether it's a commercial building, whether it's a residential developer, it doesn't matter. When people are looking for site-ready development, that's what they're looking for, just like Lot 11. The industries look for the same thing as your commercial corridor developers look at. It's not a different set of rules when you're in the real estate game. But I just want to clarify that, because we all know everywhere you travel all over, you see site ready. Now, I will say that this gets us to a closer point than where we are. But there are a couple fundamental issues here that are not addressed. And I agree, I don't have a problem, and I don't think most developers would have a problem placing the bond. I think where the problem lies with any developer is, you put a bond up. First of all, we're not telling how we're going to determine that bond. What is the math of that? Is that just who pulls those numbers out, right? Is it per acre? Is it per linear foot? There are a lot of things that are missing here that are left to someone's discretion, you, whoever else, that does not create the objectiveness that the UDO should have. That's my issue, because I think the developer should know, okay, it's $1,000 per acre, or it's $1,500 per linear footage. Hold on a minute. And the issue, that's the first issue, is how is that?
Can I address that for you so I don't get lost in the weeds here real quick? So the reason we didn't provide a number is because it is site specific. It depends on the type of tree you're planting back and how dense you're planting it.
So they're not planting. You're taking a bond and you're going to plant whatever. The standard tree that's planted is pines. I don't think we're going to go in there and plant cherry trees or oak trees. And then second, so that is going to be up to the city to determine what's planted there. You're going to take their bond and then ask them to landscape it out, what they want to plant.
So the issues that we've run into with this specific question about a bond recently, we allowed the developer to provide us with a number from his forester. We took him with that number because they are the professional in the forestry industry, and they made the recommendation of which trees were to be planted based on the environment. So they looked at the trees that were there and recommended hardwoods or what have you, poplar, be planted for that site, because that was, again, site specific. So in this case, there was not a number provided, because that would be something the forester working for the developer who's going to ultimately do the clear cutting work would need to evaluate the site, provide us with that number and the type of species of trees.
So wouldn't the policy need to say that then?
Not necessarily.
The way that we're going to come up with to determine the bond, I think you've got a bond here. You have to be objective in how this bond will be enforced. So you would put verbiage in here that would say that upon coming to get your permits or whatever, you would need to have this site evaluated by a forester or a tree planting company or whoever, and get a quote. You bring that back to us, and that's how the bond is determined. If not, it's open for anybody to pull a bond out however they want to pull it out. Do we agree or disagree with that? You have to have an objective path to get to the ordinance here, okay? But here's the other thing. When you advertise this particular policy in general, let's use the commercial corridor, residential, whatever, we all know that an investor typically buys the land, then they place it for sale, then a builder or the actual developer comes in. Typically, the people who are getting that stuff ready are not your actual developers. So then they market that. The same way the Liberty Road was marketed, the same way Belmont Estates has been marketed, and so forth and so forth. And look how long that's been dead. It was such an outrage from the community. So when someone purchases this land, comes in, gets their clear cutting permit, stumps, and sows grass, they've invested a lot of money in that to get that site ready. Then it doesn't sell in 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. Then we're going to take that money and go back in and destroy the work that was done to get that property site ready until it sells. Prime example, Butch Trent's property behind Napa. Anybody from Reidsville knows that property sat on the market for 20 years, and it just sold last year. You don't ever know. So you expect a developer or an investor to come in, let's take developer out of the equation because that's typically not an investor to come in, purchase this land, clear cut it, invest all this money. It doesn't sell 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and we all know that we're on a 5-year decline. So by the time they get to that point, where are we at in the market shift and in the economy shift? And so then what are the rules to make the decision at that point in time that it gets planted back? That's an issue, because when people, what I mean by that is when people invest hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this kind of work, to take it to market, they set on it. Lots of times, you buy land, you sit on it for years and years and years, and eventually, that special buyer comes along, or that special developer comes along. 5, 6, 7 years, whatever your rules are here, if that hadn't sold yet, you plant it back, guess what? That property owner is back at square one again, because now you've planted a buffer all the way around it. It's no longer site ready.
The buffer doesn't go all the way around. So the buffer would only be to replant what's required per this ordinance.
I understand that, but the purpose of taking that buffer down is to get the property site ready. We have a fundamental difference in how we get to growth here in this community. All of us do. It's very apparent that we all totally disagree on what is going to spark this growth here. You know, so that's just my concern. It is, you want to look at this from the investor standpoint and the financial standpoint of this. My second concern is when it comes down to it, where are we actually going to stand and not find ourselves in a lands taking case or situation when you go onto someone's property 5, 6, 7 years and start planting trees? There's a lot of issues here that need true legal advice in these policies. You know, you guys asked, I'm going to revert back to the general statutes that was asked of the attorney a while ago. I didn't see anybody present general statutes that backed up your ability to neglect the maintenance of stormwater. So I think if we're going to ask the public for general statutes, or investors, or whoever's speaking at the time, we need to be ready to back up whatever policies that we're bringing by presenting the general statutes, especially when it's being challenged in the public by the people here. You know, it just amazes me that we think that people are going to see all this back and forth and these particular restrictions and regulations after regulations and half change regulation, and then someone's all of a sudden going to knock down the door and beg us to come in here. You know, it's just a half-cocked policy. I will say it's better than what we had, but I don't know why we want to go halfway at this point in time, given we ain't seen anything happen here in 25, 30 years, and certainly people want to see something more than the Penrose Mall happen. You know.
And my comment was specifically about Liberty Road and South Park. You know, the public's opinion is it's city council's fault that hasn't been developed. It's city council's fault that it looks as bad as it does. And I'm getting phone calls wanting to know why we're not doing anything about it. So that was where my comments came from.
I certainly understand the concern and the sentiment there from both council and public, and I think it's no one's fault. It's not council's fault. It's not staff's fault directly. There's a bunch of moving pieces. The ordinance as it was written, when they clear-cut Liberty Road, you know, they were able to do it because they had a development approval. So they were able to do it the way that they did. I can't force someone to go out there and spend their money and invest to make a project move forward. From what we've heard, it's a number of things. It's concerns about the economy, the cost of materials, the school system. You know, is there really a need for this type of housing, or has that need changed since the project began? It's been a number of things, specifically with Liberty Road.
Point taken in the high-density homes in the improved subdivisions that you have. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make in the cost of things. But here's the question in talking about all these intricate parts of cost and all these things. Rockingham County alone, I have it from the county manager right here, closed out over 1,000 new homes in the county last year, finaled them in CO. I had another policy here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 subdivisions in the county that broke ground. 14 subdivisions that have closed out 1,000 new homes last year that were put on the market and sold. How many homes has Reidsville sold and closed out since 2008, let alone last year? Does anybody know that answer? We've built and sold fewer than 250 homes since 2008 here. And we have these particular policies and we're never addressing these. What is the issue here? We keep talking cost. Cost hasn't prevented 1,000 new homes from being built in Rockingham County in 14 major subdivisions that broke ground last year. And more on the way. You got 2 more that are in the approval phase as well right here on the spreadsheet from the county manager. I just don't understand why we don't have better discussions and get subject matter experts to lead us in what makes the economy tick and flow here. No one here on this council board, myself included, and staff is an expert in the economy and what happens here. And I think that we have to get that professional advice to figure these policies out instead of creating these half-cocked policies, you know.
So I think it might be helpful to everyone on council if we go through it line by line, just to make sure we know exactly what's being discussed. Because Mr. Martin here has brought up a couple of times commercial investment and site ready, and I just want to give you the full picture of what the policy includes. So we'll start at the top. Article 3, Section 8, clear cutting of trees. General requirements. Many of these general requirements are what's currently in our ordinance today. Number 1, a clear cutting permit must be obtained prior to any logging activity on any non-exempt parcel within the city of Reidsville's jurisdiction. And there are exempt parcels. Prior to the issuance of a clear cutting permit, the applicant must present all required documentation and/or permits from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for review by the Reidsville City Planning staff. Number 3, the required tree buffer zone shall not exceed 20% of the tract acreage net of public right-of-way roads and any required conservation easements. Number 4, perimeter buffer zones that adjoin public roadways shall be measured from the edge of the public road right-of-way. Perimeter buffer zones that adjoin private roadways shall be measured from the property line. Properties in which the total acreage prior to the original adoption of this ordinance is 2 acres or less are exempt from the requirements of this ordinance. A survey of individual trees is not required by this ordinance to obtain a clear cutting permit. Number 7, this ordinance will not deny reasonable access onto and within the subject property. So that kind of addresses that concern of a taking. You know, at what point does it become a taking? We're telling you can't use your property. And then number 8, forestry activity on property that is taxed on the basis of its present use value as agricultural, horticultural, or forest land under Article 12 of Chapter 105 of the North Carolina General Statutes, and forestry activity that is conducted in accordance with a forestry management plan prepared or approved by a forester registered pursuant to Chapter 89B of the North Carolina General Statutes are hereby excluded from the requirements of this section. So there alone, this is the information that we currently have in our clear cutting policy, in our ordinance. You have several exemptions from this policy. Lots of ways to get out of having to do this. This is the new part, Section 2, for residential properties. A tree buffer zone shall be required for undeveloped residentially zoned properties of 25 feet along all property boundaries and right-of-ways. It shall be unlawful to remove trees from undeveloped properties within the required buffer zone prior to the approval of a site plan, subdivision plan, or other authorized development plan or permit for any property. If development approval is obtained, no buffer is required to be left. And then we have that exemption that I was referring to. Residential parcels may be cleared completely if they obtain development approval within 3 years from the date of issuance of the clear cutting permit. Upon clearing, the parcel is required to be graded, reseeded with grass or similar ground cover. To ensure compliance with this exemption, a bond equivalent to the cost of replanting the buffer shall be provided by the applicant prior to the issuance of the clear cutting permit or the occurrence of any buffer removal activity on site. This bond will be used by the city to replant the required buffer if development approval is not obtained within the specified time period. If development approval is obtained, the bond will be returned to the permittee. Section 3. It mirrors Section 2, but for commercial. So commercial and industrial properties abutting or adjoining residential lots. A tree buffer zone shall be required for undeveloped commercial and industrially zoned properties of 25 feet along all property boundaries adjoining or abutting residentially zoned parcels. So again, if one of the 4 sides adjoins residential, you have to leave a 25-foot buffer. The other 3 sides, including your frontage along the street, does not have to have a buffer. And for that purpose, shouldn't really hinder any marketing of the property as far as visibility is concerned from the street. A buffer is not required to be left, again, along public or private right-of-ways. It shall be unlawful to remove trees from undeveloped properties within this required buffer zone prior to the approval of a site plan, subdivision plan, or other authorized development approval or permit for this property. If development approval is obtained, no buffer is required to be left. Commercial and industrially zoned properties that do not abut or adjoin residential parcels are not required to leave any tree buffer. And then there's that exemption. It mirrors the exemption as before, with the exception that it is 5 years instead of 3 years. And then Section 4, violations. And Section 4, again, is exactly what we currently have in place. So building permits, site plans, and subdivision plans shall be denied by staff to the owner of any property for a period of 3 years after the completion of the removal of trees from the required perimeter buffer zone if the removal of trees results in the removal of all or substantially all of the trees that were protected under this ordinance from the tract of land for which the permit or plan approval is sought. So you have your general requirement section that mirrors what's currently in the ordinance. Section 4 violations mirrors what's currently in the ordinance. We've heard from the public, from council, from our last meeting, that we wanted to relax the buffer requirements, and that's what we've done here. So you're going from a 50-foot to a 25-foot, and you're only now required to keep them if it abuts residential. So most of the commercial properties where you have, let's say along Freeway, around the city's periphery, if you wanted to clear any of those parcels, you wouldn't have to have a tree buffer. There are a few on Freeway that back up to residential on the west side, but most of those parcels, you would be exempt from leaving any sort of significant buffer. Are there any questions about the content of the ordinance itself that we'd like to walk through again?
Any other questions? A motion from the city council is required to pursue the amendment process. Motion to pursue.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Got a request that we take about a 10-minute break. Okay, we're back in business with new business. Presentation of the 2024-2025 audit. It's in a separate enclosure. Daniel T. Garfady, Sharon Baycard.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'll turn it over to the auditors here in a second. I think Dan's on there along with, well, it looks like just Dan on the screen. So Cherry Baker is our auditors, and they are here to present you our June 30, 2025 audit. What they'll be presenting to you, the slideshow that you were given with your packet, it's really the technical side of what's the scope of the audit and what they're required to do. There are required communications they have to give to you all, and he'll be doing that tonight. He really doesn't get into the results of the year at all, but in front of your seat, you have the audit report, fresh off the presses, so you have that. When we go to your annual retreat next month, we will go into some of the details out of here. But if you have any questions, anything in the audit, there's a ton of information in there. But if you're not somebody that deals with these reports, it's hard to find what you're looking for. So I'd be glad if you have any questions to, answer them. If you have questions for the auditors, I can put you in touch with them as well, and you can ask your questions directly to him. But I'll turn it over to Dan, and he's going to go through this pretty quickly, but any questions you have, you guys feel free to ask him as he goes through or at the end. But again, this is going to be more of the technical side and the required communications that the auditor has to give. So Dan, if you're ready, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And is the presentation up on the screen? I can't see it on my side.
It is.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just let you know to scroll down through it. You can go right past the agenda into the client service team, slide 3. Again, just thank you for having us to be able to talk to you about the audit results. As Chris mentioned, this will be more on the technical side of things, of audit approach, how we approach the audit, how we decide what we're going to test, what we're looking at, and our overall opinion on the audit. We'll also go over a lot of information that's required to be presented to those charged with governance on a yearly basis. Some of the stuff has been presented in prior years. A lot of the stuff on the back side of my presentation. That's information we have to do on a yearly basis. So I'll go through that fairly quick, but feel free to let me know if I'm going too quick for you all. So on slide 4, I have the results of the audit. And so on the results of the audit, slide 4, we have audited the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. We also audit the financial statements in accordance with government auditing standards. That's all in which to form an opinion and provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. And then we also complete our audit over the federal and state awards that the city receives. So on a yearly basis, we will be looking at certain federal or state awards based on if they meet a certain threshold and if they haven't been tested in the previous years. But we also have certain coverage we need to maintain, which is at least 20% of your awards are being tested on a yearly basis. For the financial statements, we have issued an unmodified opinion, which is also known as a clean opinion, and it's the highest level opinion we can give under our auditing standards. So it means that the financial statements, we are giving reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement, are properly stated within the context of generally accepted accounting principles. On the federal and state side of things, that audit is in process of being completed. We are really close to being completed with that. Delays that happened with this one was because usually the OMB, the Office of Management Budget at the federal level, will provide us with the testing template of what we are to test for each of the grants, and that occurs usually in May of the prior year. That didn't occur until a day before Thanksgiving this year. Due to just delays in getting that issued, and then also just the government shutdown, we weren't able to get that, so we weren't able to finish out our testing until now. But right now, as it stands, we don't currently have any findings, and we're just working with management to finish up a couple of things, and then I will be able to get in there, review it, and issue that report as well. On slide 5 here is the federal and state programs that we've audited. The federal programs that we audited this year is the Public Safety Partnership and Community Police Grant. That was a new grant with a significant amount of funding this year that we have not audited in the past. We also looked at the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund. And so that's another federal program that's pretty large that the city has in each year. So usually we need to test that for coverage purposes, even though we've tested it the past few years. And then the state program is pretty much the only state program in most years that we test on a yearly basis. Is the PAL bill, which is your gas tax, and what you spend on streets that are eligible under that tax. On slide 6, we have a large blurb there that talks about internal controls. What this is really just saying in a nutshell is that while we look at internal controls, and if we find issues with internal controls, we'll make you aware of those issues. We do not actually provide an opinion on the effectiveness of those internal controls themselves. On slide 7 is our internal control communication. This is just to remind you, if we have a control finding, we may identify those control findings based on the severity of the control as a material weakness or a significant deficiency. Material weakness being the larger or more severe kind of finding that control is either lacking or non-existent to prevent a material error from being detected. And then a significant deficiency being one less than that. I'm happy to note we've noted no material weaknesses as a part of our audit, and we had no reported significant deficiencies. Slide 8 and then 9 are corrected and uncorrected adjustments. So as part of our audit, if we come across anything that we feel that management needs to post an adjustment to adjust the financial statements to make them fairly stated, we need to make you aware of those. Again, happy to say that we had no corrected adjustments this year, and we had no uncorrected adjustments. So nothing that we proposed but management passed on. The financial statements you see are the financial statements that were provided to us by management at the beginning of our engagement with no adjustment to any accounts. Skipping to slide 10, this is where we start kind of our general discussion about items that we need to confirm with you on a yearly basis. So the first, which is that note 1 is where your significant accounting policies lie. This is where you define how you recognize revenue, how you recognize expenditures throughout your financial statements. You also adopted a new accounting standard this year, GASB 101. This had little to no effect on you this year because of the way you consider your sick leave, and you're more likely than not to be used the sick leave to be paid out. There was no adjustment required for the city. And there are no new other accounting policies adopted for this year. Slide 11 is related to related party transactions. We were not made aware of any related party transactions that we already knew about. Everything was noted to be proper in arm's length transaction for any related party transactions we tested as part of our audit, and no difficulties in identifying those related parties. Slide 12 is about significant or unusual items. So we had no significant or unusual items to note for this audit. So unusual being kind of outside the normal course of business of the city. So nothing to note there. Slide 13 and 14 deal with significant estimates. So as part of the development of your financial statements, there are a number of line items that are subject to estimate. So those could be your depreciation of your capital assets, your pension and other post-employment liabilities, your SPIDAs that you have, the leases that you have, and how you calculate those liabilities. In terms of all key factors and assumptions, we reviewed those used by management. We determined they were consistent with previous years, and we determined there was no management bias of those estimates. And we determined that they seem to be appropriately being calculated by management. To slide 15, in terms of your disclosures, there was not one disclosure that we feel that we needed to make you aware of and make a point to point out here. All of them were clear, neutral, and consistent. Slide 16 is our independence considerations. So independence being cornerstone of our practice. We need to be independent of the city, in fact and in appearance, and we need to ensure that we maintain that independence for our audit purposes. There is one thing that we provide that would be considered a non-audit service to the city, and that's completing a data collection form. That's how we communicate with the federal government regarding the federal grants that we test at the city each year. But no issues with that, as management takes responsibility for that, and they will review and assert that that information is accurate and complete before submitting. Slide 17 here, we had no difficulties encountered as part of our audit, no disagreements with management. There are no consultations within our audit firm, so nothing outside of our engagement team that I needed to consult with other parties on. We have the manager representation letter, which was dated December 16th, which is the date of the financial statements that were issued for the city. There were no manager consultations, so no shopping for an opinion with other accounting firms or audit firms that we're aware of. No other findings or issues noted as part of our audit. No fraud or illegal acts noted, and no conditions that made us believe there was substantial doubt for the city to continue as a going concern. Slide 19 here is another way of just kind of saying what we audit and what we provide opinions on are your financial statements. So all your fund statements, your government-wide statements at the very start of the financial statements, and your notes. Everything else that is in the front and back of your annual comprehensive financial report, we provide either a limited opinion on or in relation to opinion, or no opinion at all. We do not provide an opinion on the management discussion and analysis or the statistical tables, but we do read the information for any inconsistencies, and if we note any issues or any material errors, we will note those to management before issuance. And then everything in the back schedules in terms of your combining schedules for your funds, your combining funds of the non-major funds and your budget schedules. We do look at that information and make sure that the information presented in relation to what's presented in the financial statements that we audit are consistent as well, and giving you that opinion. For slide 20, you do have two new accounting standards that will be implemented next year. 103 will be probably the most significant of the two, but really not too much of a change. The biggest thing here is that you're going to have your MD&A, your management discussion analysis will change just slightly in terms of what you're looking at there. You'll also have in your required supplement information information about changes from original to final budget amounts, and then also final budget amounts versus actual results, adding commentary from management about any significant changes. So not all changes will be discussed, but anything that is deemed to be significant will be discussed there. And then you also have change in your enterprise fund in terms of what is capital versus operating, and that we've broken out separately than it has been in the past, and also introduces a new topic of subsidies that would need to be disclosed. And then GASB 104 won't have, again, a major impact, but it just changes to some disclosures relating to your capital assets. As part of the audit process, we also complete the data input form that is completed online this year. We have done an initial entering of the data, but we haven't been able to get to management to do a final review yet. That will be done fairly soon. But as of now, we don't see any financial performance indicators of concern. I think if you remember from the prior year, we did have some, performance indicators related to the debt covenants and related to the water sewer fees, which was already in the works of being remediated as the audit was being completed. That has raised the rates and raised the fees, which have allowed for the debt covenant to be met this year. And so we don't have any continued items with that this year. And then you have a positive general total fund balance and effective pre-audit process. We noted no issues with your pre-audit process and making sure that you have the money to spend before you spend it. And no other statutory violations to note. If anything comes up as we finish the form, we will let you know, but as of now, there are no performance indicators of concern that you would have to write a letter and respond to the LGC this year. So with that, I'll open it up if anyone has any questions.
Like everything I've heard. We don't have any violations.
Right?
Anybody have any questions?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing it.
Yeah, no questions, Dan.
No question. Okay.
Yeah, no
well,
questions.
I just want to also recognize Chris and his team. They do a great job of getting us the information to get this audit completed and to get it done on time. And I know we ask a lot of questions, but he's very good about getting us the answers we need to be able to complete this audit based on the time frame we were scheduled. So I do want to thank him and his team for all their efforts to getting this completed and presented to you all.
Yeah, and we appreciate the help of the audit firm. There's not a lot of firms doing this kind of work anymore, so we're glad that Sherry Becker and a few others are pitching in doing that. It's not getting any easier, but when it comes to transparency and being responsible to the Republic, this report definitely has the information that's necessary. And the other piece of it is, it does go to the local government commission of the state, and it has to be approved by them too. So North Carolina is very heavy on oversight, which we do appreciate at the state level. So again, if you all have questions after tonight, feel free to run them by me. I can give you Dan's direct contact. If there's information in there you want to run by him, he'd be glad to respond to you, I'm sure.
We need a motion to approve the audit.
I don't think there's any approval, it's just the presentation. That's the necessary step to finish it up.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your meeting.
All right, next item on the agenda, consideration of change order number 4. For Turner Murphy, as part of the wastewater treatment plant improvement project. Enclosure 3, Reese Brothers, Public Works Director.
Good evening, Mayor, all members of council, interim Mr. Phillips. Attached is change order number 4 executed by McGill and Associates due to an increase in construction costs associated with unforeseen concrete repairs to aeration basin number 2. The request is for additional $78,696 since $84,987 remain in the budget. Comes to a total of $163,683. In addition to this increase in funds, Turner Murphy Company Incorporated is also seeking an increase in time of an additional 120 days to complete the entire project. This will revise the substantial completion from December 31st, 2025 to its new date of April 30th, 2026, as well as the final completion date from January 30th, 2026 to May 30th, 2026. The scope of work is that there were several damaged construction joints, spalling concrete underneath the existing walkway bridges, as well as continuous cracking within the aligned angled wall aligned with the south elongated wall section of AB2. Excuse me. These was undetected originally because the basin was in use, and we couldn't tell from that, looking that deep down in the sludge that was in the sludge material that was in the basin. I would like to make a motion to approve change order number 4 for Turner Murphy Company Incorporated contract related to the wastewater treatment plant being our project. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Brothers?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there not an inspection done prior to finding this damage?
No, ma'am. Unfortunately, when I arrived in 23, that particular basin was in service. So we didn't have any records at that time that indicated that there was an inspection before I arrived. But once I got here in 23, no, ma'am. That was the only cell that was in use.
So if it went into production before an inspection was done, whose fault was that?
It's old, Teresa.
Oh,
They were
old.
utilizing it, and
Okay.
it wasn't until they drained it to work on it that they could see this damages.
Okay, I'm
He
sorry.
I know, he covered that in there, though, in the reasoning behind it.
Thanks, sir.
I think she thought it was one of these new, the work.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the change order number 4 for Turner Murphy Company, Inc., contract related to the wastewater treatment plant B&R project.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, consideration of fiscal year 2026-2027 budget calendar and work sessions. Enclosure 4, Chris Phillips, interim city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Every year we do like to start the budget season off with a calendar that's presented to you all. It says consideration of, so I guess we would entertain a motion to adopt this calendar. But as you can see, the first thing I want is to present the calendar to you all tonight. We've got your retreat next month on there. Then there's some internal things when information has to be back to out to management team, then back to finance and back to the manager. Back and forth, but then we will be ready in the May meeting to present the budget to you all. After that, we will have budget work sessions with you once you have the proposed budget, so we can go through detail on any questions that you have. And we'll be ready in June for you all to vote on the budget for 26-27, which doesn't sound right, but that's where we are. So this is pretty much standard calendar that we've used, and obviously we'll have as many budget work sessions as you all feel is necessary once we have the budget pulled together.
Any questions of the manager?
I'll make a motion to approve this calendar as written.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Consideration of an interlocal agreement for fire inspection services at public schools within the city limits. Closure 5, Josh Farmer, Assistant City Manager of Public Safety and Fire Chief.
Greetings, Mayor, Council, Interim Manager, Mr. Phillips. For the sake of time, I'll be brief. What's before you tonight is an interlocal agreement between the City of Reidsville and Rockingham County. What this boils down to, essentially, we've been providing these fire and life safety inspection services for a number of years on county property at your local public schools that lies within the boundaries of the city limits of Reidsville. After a recent inspection at the Rockingham County Fire Marshal's office, it was determined that a more formal agreement was needed instead of the old gentleman's handshake agreement that occurred years ago. So just to be sure that we're in compliance with all the laws, rules, and regulations, myself, the Rockingham County Fire Marshal, City Attorney Mr. McLeod, and the County Attorney got together and drafted what's before you for your consideration. And obviously, staff and legal advice is recommended to adopt it as presented. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of manager/chief?
One question.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
we're talking about public school facilities. This doesn't have anything to do with any private schools.
That's correct. Private schools are our responsibility, but North Carolina General Statutes requires that county fire marshals inspect county properties, and which public schools are county properties and county facilities. So it just makes sense for us to do the inspections since it's within our jurisdiction and we'll be the ones responding out in the event of an emergency. So we like to send our fire marshal's office in to take a look at all the safety elements and all the protocols and procedures that are in place to ensure that we know what we're going to if an event were to actually occur.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'd like to thank you for bringing this forward and doing it the proper way.
Thank you.
Any further questions? We have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement between the city and county for the provision of fire inspection services for public schools.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Board and commission appointments, we have 2 on tonight. Consideration of January appointments is in enclosure 6. One for Reidsville Main Street Advisory Board and the other for Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The Main Street Advisory Board, we have a Mr. Callum McGinnis. He happens to be present here tonight.
Make a motion to approve Callum McGinnis to the RDC Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you, Callum. Reidsville Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. That person is Miss Donna White. I happen to know Miss White personally. I was a reference for her to take a teaching position here in Reidsville, and now she's a part of her own daycare facility.
I'll make a motion to approve Donna White to this Recreation Advisory Commission for the 3-year term.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Next is City Manager's Report. Enclosure 7.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Moore was able to complete her report before she went out, so it is in your packet, and it touches on updates on several projects going on, some meetings and events that she was able to attend as normal. I do want to touch on, she has one personnel issue in here where we made a hire, but since Mr. Brothers is still here, I'll just tell you, since Bo's taken the Public Works Director position, he's been on fire replacing himself with a very qualified person from the outside. He also has replaced the Water Treatment Supervisor position was open, which was an internal promotion, which we were glad to see. He was able to replace the position that person came from already internally, and he's replaced at the wastewater treatment plant, our pre-treatment coordinator retired, and we were able to replace that person as well internally. So he has worked with HR and he's got the 2 plants staffed up. We need to make some hires since we were able to move some people up. But they're doing a great job, and really pleased that we were able to find his replacement quickly out at the sewer plant. But that's all I have for the reports.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next, we have city council members and chamber reports, and Diane has to leave early tonight, so I want to give her a chance to get hers done. You can have my time, Diane.
There's a lot on that paper, but I will be brief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You did not have to do that. I think we kind of rolled on through that last part.
Sometimes I kind of forget you, so I want to make sure I got you.
I appreciate that. I just want to say a couple of things that are not on here. 2026 is starting off with a bang, but to wrap up a few things from December. Thank you all to those of you that came by and wished Star happy retirement. It meant a lot to her on the day of our holiday social. I'm very appreciative of that. And also, we celebrated our 100th News and Views show, which the mayor was a part of, with also Miss Summer before she left. And Roy did an amazing job putting that together and helping us do that. And so I was really thankful because we were able to talk about what we see coming. So we talked a lot about celebrating 100 episodes, and then I was able to just interview Chris as, I guess it was episode 103. And we were just discussing the future of Reidsville and how exciting it is from where I started this show. And so I'm really glad that we are able to continue to reach people and do that. One thing that is not on here is the countywide coffee, because it is in the morning, and I think we probably were not thinking about that, and I apologize. But if you have not heard, you are all invited and welcome to attend the countywide coffee at RCC at the Workforce Development Center at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. I hope to see a lot of you there. Also upcoming next Monday is our annual MLK Junior Unity Breakfast. As you all know, that breakfast, not only do we celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but also the proceeds from that breakfast go to two students at RCC. And so it's a scholarship event, and there are several of you that have donated, and I thank you very much for that. The breakfast is essentially sold out. So if you have not gotten a ticket, I have held just a couple that I promised to release back at noon tomorrow. So if you have not gotten your ticket and you need it, you need to let me know, because I specifically held them for you. So if you need them, please let me know. And then we're going to take the rest to coffee in the morning. So they may be gone. Also, we have a ton of things coming up. We are really excited. Miss Eden Combs' home group, they are hosting South Main Social, a business after hours at 308 South Main Street. So you may know that they have that historic home listed as one of their properties and have gotten permission to host a social to promote not only the home and that it's for sale, but they're going to have several partners there that night, and that is on January 22nd, 4:30 to 7:30. Callum, does that kind of cover? And so we're that's happening, and then also the annual awards luncheon is coming up on Wednesday, February 4th, and that will be at the Carriage House from 11:30 to 1. So tickets are available for that, and you can see Miss Angela, as she always helps us with your RSVPs, but also you can contact the chamber directly. There are several other things coming up. One that you might draw your attention to. I know that you are the Reidsville City Council, but especially if in your other hats that you wear, you do business outside of Reidsville. We are having a 5-chamber regional event in Eden with Eden Longmore, and it is Martinsville, Danville, and the 3 chambers of Rockingham County. That is coming up in February, and then our Reidsville Night, which is sponsored by Team Reidsville, is with the Greensboro Swarm, is in March. So we have a lot of events coming up. I'm not going to call them all out, but there are several ribbon cuttings also, and they are all listed here. We have Toro Tax, which some of you probably know, the Moscata family, former police officer, his daughter. This is their business. And then AT&T, which is going to be really exciting. I hope some of you come to that. I do not have a location, so I will announce that, but they are wanting to celebrate the new fiber. And so that is going to be really important, and I'll let y'all know about that. He made it kind of sound like there might be more than one location or more than one ribbon cutting, so I'll let you know if I get more info. And then also the Collective Coffee in Wentworth. They have renamed, rebranded, renovated, and so there'll be a ribbon cutting for them. Tons of new members, tons of great stuff happening. The rest of it is on your paper. I thank you all for our partnership and what we do. We have a lot going on, and we're just trying to keep up. So thank you for stepping in for summer and interviewing with me. I really loved having you on the show, as always. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Diane.
You need a ticket? Okay. How many? 1. Okay, I'll save you 1. Anybody else? Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Yep, I heard you needed one, that's why I kept them.
Okay.
So I'll get back 20. Yep, okay, I got one for both of you. I'll have them on my person tomorrow, so just, I'll write your name on it, whatever we need to do, but text me, call me, something, yes.
Diane. Harry needs 2, so you
Okay.
need 4 total.
4 total, that might be about all I have, okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure y'all got one, and I was told you needed one, and I knew there were a couple others in mine, so. Okay. Yeah, that's my stuff. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council member reports. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor, I want to get one thing to I'd like to congratulate Summer Moore and Nathaniel Moore for bringing Little Mistress into this world.
Councilman Harrison.
No report this evening.
Councilwoman Barbara Dejanay.
Mayor, I did attend a few things in December, and like you said, the Reidsville Christmas Chamber Social and the retirement for Star was fantastic. And we had a lot of fun. Also, the City Hall Chamber meeting, I attended that, and the 202 City Council meeting, and that's my
Councilman Coates.
Board.
Councilwoman Scobel.
No report, sir.
Councilman Martin.
I just want to make mention of two events that I attended, but also to promote community awareness of it. The Rich Harwood event that's being put on by Reidsville Area Foundation to promote community involvement, let your voices be heard, I think is a really important event. I had the pleasure to attend two meetings, the one at RCC as well as the leadership, the pastor leadership as well, and received a lot of good information, as well as I attended the Fed chair report at RCC. Talked a lot about Rockingham County, the city, and where we stand with growth and interest rates and things. I would encourage a lot of people to try to get a copy of that if they didn't, to hear what's said at both of these events. And also make sure the community knows about this Rich Harwood thing being put on by Reidsville Area Foundation. I think this is what we truly need to get an understanding of development and the issues that we face. And I'd like to thank Reidsville Area Foundation for doing that and investing, from my understanding, $2.5 million in this program. That's it.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to forego my report for tonight. Diane mentioned one of the most important ones that I felt like I was part of over that period, and that being the 100th showing of her News and Views. With that said, we're going to move to the first floor conference room for a closed session to discuss an item under attorney-client privilege pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Motion.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. We will not be returning to the chambers tonight. We do appreciate everyone coming out.